Hello, everybody. Let's see. I need to make sure I can view chat. At least I got started in the right the right direction today. Last time I had to stop and restart because it was in the horizontal mode instead of, or vertical mode instead of horizontal. You guys doing all right? All right. Oh, okay, there we go. Austria. Hey, Max, how you doing? Wow. One of the places I'd like to visit. I knew some people years ago from Austria, and they it's one place that I would like to visit. Of course, nobody's going anywhere right now, as we all know that. Just organizing my tools here before we get started. I hope you guys are doing well. Hello from Texas. Hey, how you doing? Yorkshire? Ontario, Canada. Hey. Hey, Rick. Or Bev. I lived in outside of Toronto for a year. New Bern. New Bern, North Carolina. You're probably the closest. And Los Angeles, California. Man, isn't the internet an amazing thing? I tell you, this is crazy. Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, Barbara. Yeah, no planes. Yeah, it's Daryl. That's awesome, New Bern. You are definitely by far the closest, unless my wife is in the house watching. Obviously, she's going to be the closest. Long Island, New York, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Nottingham, England. Welcome. All right. Well, we're not gonna dwell on all the obvious things. Hey, Christina. Yes, she's present. So she gets the award for being closest and watching. Outside of that, New Bern is pretty darn close compared to everybody else. But yeah, we're going to ignore all the obvious crazy things that we all know that's going on, because I decided I wanted to do this live stream, and honestly to be somewhat of a break from all that for everybody. And so we're gonna talk about pots and clay. And first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a video of doing the tops on the bottoms that my last video I made. But right now I actually need to do the tops on the ones that I made in that video. I've got some more that I made that I'll actually make the video about, but here on the live stream I'm gonna take these. I've got 3 right here. And I've got 4 up here underneath plastic that I'm going to put the tops on. That larger one back there and those on the bottom, those are all 6-pound jars for my next wood firing. So I'm going to take these here and put the tops on them on the live stream. So if anybody of you wanted to see that, you're going to see it live, and then you'll also see a video about it when I do the other ones. All right, so that one is on correctly. I didn't mark my bats, as I said, when I made them. So anyway, just checking that one. So what I do with these, I've got some about 1.25 pound clay balls already cut up. Man, my calipers are already set for the lids for those jars. I'm gonna have to measure those and then reset them, because I've got my caliper set when I made those 6-pound jars. When I make the first one, usually what I do is Gray terracotta. I'm not sure that you can get that. Well, you probably can buy light colored low fire clay. I'm sure you can. I don't know that it would be specifically terracotta though. Um, anyway, when I make my first jar, usually I get a set of calipers and I measure the first one, and then I try to make all the subsequent ones the same width in the top, so when I go to make lids, they're all pretty much the same size, so I can make a bunch of lids with the same set of calipers. And then after they, dry a little bit, I may have to move them around and fit them to find the best fit, but at least I've got somewhat of an idea. So let's see, that is 5 1/4. So I'm going to remember that for later to reset these, because when I make the tops for these, what I do is I take the top of this. Hey Peg, how you doing? Or Reggie? Yeah, your pots are on the way. So what I do with the top of these is I take and I measure the inside, but I come in from the edge, probably a good 1/2 inch on each side, because what I'm gonna do is when I make the piece that's gonna go on top of this, I'm gonna make it with like a concave shape, so that the top of that I throw fits down over this lip. These bottoms have been drying since let's see, Monday night, and I've had them under plastic. I left them out for a good while Monday, and then I covered them up, and so it's been and then the tops got a little drier than they needed to, so then when I sprayed them and covered them, and then I just haven't had time to make the tops for them until now, and they just really need to be done now. So that's why I'm going to do these now. So I've got these clay balls already cut up. They're about 1 1/4 pounds. And I didn't weigh them, but I did them by the length. My pug mill pugs out a pug that's that big, and then I just 1 inch is a pound when it's that length, and then I just cut them in half. So I measured like 2 1/2 inches and then cut them in half. Oh, let me tilt the camera down. I'll move you in closer too, so that you can see more specifically what I'm doing with these. All right, I'm gonna go all the way down to the wheel head, because I'm making just a hollow cylinder for the top of these, but I'm throwing it's gonna be upside down, because I'm gonna flip it over on the bat. I'm gonna leave the top portion of this thicker so that I can make that concave shape. This one may not have quite enough clay, but that's okay. I can just make a smaller top on this one if I need to. Good thing about this, because the bottoms are very dry, I can actually, once I get this on the pot, I can actually do quite a bit of pulling and shaping, as if it's kind of like its own pot, because the bottom section is so dry. I'm not worried about distorting or having the bottom give out and sag on me while doing this. Alright, so as you can see, like I said, I'm just making a kind of a concave shape there that'll go over the lip of the piece. And then I usually just clean out a little bit of the extra clay around the bottom on the inside and the outside. So when I cut this free from the bat, I don't have all that extra clay sitting there. Alright, so I do these just like one at a time when I do these, because all the tops of these are not the same size like my jars. When I throw these, I usually just throw them to whatever width that I want, and then come back and put the tops on them, and I just make each one individual. Alright, so I may take this and just wet the top just a little bit. Like I said, it's very stiff at this point, as you can see. It's not soft at all. Hey Heather. So I'm going to take this, flip it over like this, and then that groove right there should fit down over the lip. Usually kind of spin it a little bit to see if I've got it close to center. And then I'm going to take a wire and cut this free. I hold the bat up against my chest and then just pull the wire up and towards me to release it from the bat. And boom. So the first thing I do is add a little bit of water to the top there. And then I'm going to add some water right below the bottom here. And with my thumb, I kind of like push down. Yeah, the bat's wobbling a little bit on the bat pins. And I'm just working on the inside as well, just the same, just kind of pushing that down over that lip on the inside. Every once in a while you could trap a little bit of air right there, but it's pretty evident if you do. And if I do, I just pop it with a needle tool and then go back to. I probably should have put a little bit of clay underneath this bat to help keep it from wobbling. You can see it wobbling just a little bit there, but I think it'll be okay for this one. So one of the things I'd really try to do with these is get that joint to look seamless, so that you can't tell that it was made in two pieces. I just like if I can get the smooth shape from top to bottom. I'll work on that more in just a minute. I'm going to work on this neck a little bit. Yeah, thankfully I don't have, I guess because, you know, by adding the wet piece on top, it adds enough moisture there that the two combine. I'm sure there are clays out there that might give you a problem with that, because there are some clays that don't join as well together. I've worked with clays before that I've even had a hard time just adding handles if the pots get a little bit, you know, too dry. But excuse me, this clay seems to work really well and join very well. So alright, I'm not going to pull all the way through because I want to leave that top rim nice and thick. I'm probably going to do another one like the one that was on the thumbnail for this video. So I'm going to put those grooves in the neck there. Alright, so that's the first thing I'm going to do, is that right there. And now, I got a really fancy tool here to make these grooves in the neck. Don't tell anybody my secret. I got a paintbrush, and the blunt end has a really nice round shape. So I just get that wet, and then push that in, clean it off. maybe one more. All right. Get those cleaned up and then work on this top here just a little bit. Oh no, I hope my squeak in my wheel's not coming back. I fixed that sometime last year. There you go. So there's the first one done. So now I've taken a 3-pound bottom like that and turned that into like a 4 or 4¼ pound vase. That's let's see, we'll measure how tall this is. I got my ruler that starts at 18 inches here. 18 to 31¼ So that's 13¼ right? Inches, that is. All right, so there's a good perspective there from a bottom to a top. So just adding that, 1¼ to the top, you can add a whole lot to a piece as far as in size and height. And because that bottom's already stiffened up, you can work with all kinds of shapes. And maybe the next one we'll do a really tall, skinny neck and see how that works out. Let me look at comments real quick here before we start the next one. I know there was lots of them, so I'll try to skim through them. Yeah, I don't use plaster or a damp box. I'll try to cover about pulling on my next one here. I don't need to make it too much bigger when I'm making that bottom because I can put it on and then shape it, pull it from the top of that. I'd run into more problems trying to cut it off if it was thinner than leaving it a little bit thicker and then cutting it off and then shaping it afterwards. Yeah, I've never done any chattering. I've had several people ask me that, but I've never done that. Yeah, and I've never had any problem with these blowing up in the kiln. Honestly, I think, I hate to say this, I don't want to send people the wrong way, but I think scoring and slipping is a little overrated. It depends on what you're doing and what clay you're working with, but for what I'm doing, scoring and slipping, I hardly ever score or slip anything. But that's just, like I said, from my experience, I kind of know when I need to and when I don't. The glass marbles, yeah, I just use those in the wood kiln. Now, I've done it in my gas kiln too. You can do glass in any kiln because the glass is going to melt. By the time you get to 2,000 degrees, probably at least, it'll melt. And anything cone 5, 6, and above is going to melt. Yeah, at least I know how to fix the squeak now, yeah. Most of my mug handles, no, I don't score and slip those either. Actually, sometimes I do. It really just depends. Actually, a lot of times I'll add slip, but I don't score them. I just, for unless they're really dry, I don't ever really score anything. I do use slip more than scoring. So that's just because the slip definitely makes it softer so that those will join together. The scoring, like I said, I just think in general, scoring and slipping is a little bit overrated, but like I said, that all depends on what you're working with, what kind of clay you're working with, and what you're doing. I think, people that do slab work, especially large sculptures, if they didn't score and slip, everything would come apart. So I'm just saying that for what I'm doing. So I'm not giving you specific advice to what you're doing, I don't want anybody to come back to me and be like, hey, I didn't score and slip all my pots and they all came apart. I don't want to have to, I don't want y'all to be mad at me. All right, we're going to make the top for that next one. And I'll try to explain a little bit what I'm doing as far as pulling when I'm going through this one. Do I have a favorite potter? That's a good question. I get inspired by lots of potters and pots I see. I wouldn't say I have one favorite, no. Yeah, so for my first pull, what I'm doing is kind of like grabbing that clay and pinching it together with this hand, and then I just adding water to the top, and I kind of squeeze it together and pull up. I almost pulled too much there at the top. I want to leave that thicker. Let me push that back down so I got the clay there to make that top. Alright, now I'm going to just pull a little bit more. Like I said, yeah, with this much clay, I could definitely pull this a lot thinner. But I want to leave a little bit of that thickness there to pull after I get it on the pot, on the bottom. Alright, now let's see if we can get this one on there the right way. Looks good enough. Let me grab my water. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Alright, so I am going to, like I did with the last one, I'm just going to add a little bit of water to the top of this. But with how wet this is, because it's freshly thrown, I've never had a problem with those sticking together. So. I'm just holding my finger there to see if it's going in and out or away from my finger, so that I can kind of see that top section is sitting on there somewhat centered. Oops, sorry, I should have backed that up so you could see what I'm doing. So the first thing I do is just add some water to the top, like I did the last one here. Kind of smooth that out and thin out that a little bit, because if you don't add a little bit of water there, also I've found that if you go to start working on the inside and you've got this dry, thick clay up here, if it catches on your hand, that'll kind of grab. So I like to add a little bit of water to the top there, just to help. I think I splashed a bunch of water on the bottom there. That'll help that from happening, keep that from happening. Yeah, that squeak in my wheel is definitely back. I apologize about that, guys. I gotta remember what I did last time to fix it. I think I just, I don't know. I won't be able to do it right now though. I'll have to wait till after this and flip it over and work on it. I kind of noticed the wheel getting noisier and noisier over the last few weeks. I don't know, maybe I need new belts on it or something. Let me back you guys up a little bit more. If I get this much taller, you're gonna lose sight of it. Yeah, got a little bump there. I don't know if that's from the clay I added or the bottom. I don't think it was from the bottom initially, but get that ironed out there. How often do I clean my wheel? I'll get back to other comments here in a minute, but I just saw that one. Once my splash pan gets full, I clean it out, but as far as cleaning the whole thing, I'm a pretty clean potter, so I don't get a lot of clay a lot of places. But I never like hose down my whole wheel. I know that's not recommended anyway, so like that little bit of there's a little bit of a wobble there. I wonder if there's could be an air bubble in there, but I don't think so. I think usually I feel that pretty easily. It's a pretty familiar feeling if you get an air bubble in something. I may end up putting handles on this one. Sometimes I put handles on things if they don't have the exact shoulder right in here that I want. I think sometimes handles can help distract from that and add another element that, not that I want to be lazy and just add handles to hide something, but you got to learn to work with what you got, and if a piece has got a little section there that's not exactly the way I want, then I can, sometimes you can add handles in that little area there, little decorative element, or maybe I'll just do some slip design in that area. That can also help hide like an imperfection like that if there's an area that you don't like. No, don't hold your breath. I don't want anybody passing out while watching. I don't think this one is going to fit on that shelf. Nope. Put this one back over here. Behind you guys. So don't turn around and hit it. All right. Let me go back to the comments here. Oh, you're welcome, Christine. I'm glad the videos help. Good luck, Stephen, if you go to try these. They're a lot of fun to play around with for sure. Yeah, I've never seen the Great Pottery Throwdown. It shows up in my YouTube recommendations a lot of times. You're welcome, Scott. I hope your pots show up soon. I haven't done any workshops yet, Walter. Something I'm definitely thinking about, and I was definitely thinking more about it for this year, of course, before all this happened. And I'm like, well, it's a good thing I didn't have one planned right now. Oh, this Daniel, this wheel is a Brent CXC. My other wheel that I have that I stand up at is a Pacifica GT 400. Yeah, Michael, I've seen a little bit of Sven Bear's pottery, and it's pretty cool. One of my buddies that I was wood firing with for the last 5 or 6 years, he worked with Sven for a little while when he studied in England. So Stephanie, no, my wife is not a potter also. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. She definitely knows how to make pots. That's not what she does for a living, is what I meant to say. Yeah, Scott, good. I'm glad it's coming today. Yeah, she can throw pots. Actually, no, Daniel didn't. Joseph Sand is my buddy that I've wood fired with for 5 or 6 years. I went to high school with Daniel Johnston. He was a year ahead of me in high school, and actually the first shop I ended up working at was because Daniel had worked there, and he left there to go work somewhere else. And I think like the next day in school, he came in and he was like, "Hey, I just left, my job over here, so they might be looking for somebody." So that's how I ended up going and working for the first shop that I worked at. So, yeah, I've known Daniel a long time, and so he's made some beautiful pots, especially his large jars. They're pretty amazing. I probably prefer the Brent wheel. Maybe one day if I have a brand new one, it'll be really nice that I've never had a brand new wheel in my life. It'd be pretty nice to have a brand new one that was quiet. And I know the whispers are very quiet. I don't like them personally. I don't like the free spinning wheel head, and I've had several friends that have owned them that have had multiple issues with them. Some of the components going bad in them. So just a personal, my friends' experiences and my personal preference of the wheel, I don't really care for it. Yeah, the Seagrove area it's great to have the community of potters here that we do, and for the most part we all can work together. Not that we all get together and share ideas and glaze recipes and all that, but we at least work together in the sense that we have community events where we get together. And I'm actually part of the Seagrove Area Potters Association, the board. So I'm actually helping working on those plans of all the things that we got going on. And one of the big things we have going on is a spring tour, which is supposed to be April 18th and 19th, the same weekend as my second kiln opening. But I have a pretty strong feeling right now that we may have to postpone that, and I probably will have to postpone my kiln opening sale as well, just because of all that's going on. So sad, but it is what it is. I'll get back to comments here in just a minute. After I finish, maybe even after I finish this one, maybe we'll go to make something else so that you guys can see something different made. Because if I keep talking and making these bottoms, it might just be all this one thing on this live stream. Because there's 4 more to do, and I'm only on my 3rd one now. Yeah, they would definitely go a lot quicker if I wasn't talking to you guys, but I don't mind. That's what I'm doing it for. I like having the opportunity to talk to you guys somewhat live. It's I'd say in the last year I've gotten really comfortable talking in front of my phone, my camera, and it doesn't bother me at all to just sit here and talk, and I feel like I'm talking to you guys when I'm doing it. But it definitely is fun to actually talk and have you guys respond or to answer your questions in the moment. It's definitely cool. Yeah, all right, I'll take that one on. Michael, yeah, you said, can you talk about finding your own voice in clay? Funny thing is I had a little bit of a, not a challenge with that, but it's pretty interesting. Once I had been throwing pots for other people for 20 plus years and had made very few pieces of my own in that time frame. And so once I first started making my own pots, it actually was kind of like, oh no, like what what am I gonna make for myself? Because I'm like, this is a weird feeling. I can make I felt like, man, I can make anything in the world that I want to make with clay. I mean, to some degree. I'm like, I have all this skill from the years that I've developed, but like, now what am I gonna make? Like, I remember one of the first times I was out here in the shop and I'm thinking, okay, good, I'm gonna work for myself today. I think I was still working for other people, at least majority of the time, but the days that I had off, or nights and weekends, I'd come out here and make pots for myself, and I'd be like, all right, what am I gonna make? And just having this weird feeling of like, I can make anything I want, but I have no idea what to make. Like, it's so strange. And it's definitely it's kind of like an evolution of for me, it's like I get inspired by things I see, but I never want to just copy what somebody else does. I think that's pretty immature. If you're starting out in clay and you just see something and you want to try to make it because that's something you're striving for, that's okay. But once you're experienced and then you want to try to make something for yourself, to just copy something somebody else does is pretty immature in my opinion. If you can take what you've learned and then make something unique, of your own, that's way more, it'll be more you, it'll be your own voice, as you said. And for me, it was just kind of a gradual process of I had a couple criteria for myself. It was kind of like, all right, I wanted to, of course I had to make things that would sell, because if I want to do this for a living, I'm like, all right, I got to make things that will sell. But if I can, I don't want to make things that I don't like just because they will sell. And I know that's like, there's kind of different sides of looking at pottery. There's the art side, and then there's the business side. If you're going to do it to make a living, you've got to think about both sides. And I kind of wanted to balance the two as much as I could. And my way of balancing that was like, okay, well, I definitely have to think about what will sell, and and make my time worthwhile. But I don't want to make certain things because, like, for instance, the microwave bacon cookers, I think they're ugly. I think they're hideous. I just think it's one of the ugliest pots I've ever seen in my life. I know they would sell if I made them, but I don't want to make them because I think they're ugly. And so that was kind of like, that's just a small example of like one of my lines of things that I didn't want to cross. Now, if I have to, like if it's like, okay, well, nothing else is selling and I still want to work for myself and make a living, would I make bacon cookers? Yeah, I probably would. Just like the fact that if the whole, if I always said to myself, you know what, if worse comes to worse, I'll go to McDonald's and flip burgers. It's not glorious and it doesn't pay a whole lot of money, but if it's taking care of my family and providing income for myself, I'll do whatever I have to. Now, thankfully, I don't have to, and there's probably lots of other things I could do rather than flip burgers at McDonald's, but just my mindset was like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to earn income and make a living. But if I can, I want to use my artistic ability and come up with things that I like. And my other criteria was I wanted to make things that were different than the other people that I'd worked for the last 20 years, because I'm like, I don't want to copy what they're making, because out of respect for them and for myself, I was like, you know what, I just want to make things that are different, because I just don't want to, copy what somebody else is doing. I want to have some of my own ideas. And on the flip side of that, nothing is new in pottery. If you think you're making something for the first time, somebody else has done it at one point in history. Somebody has done whatever you're doing with just probably any kind of artwork. And so to think that you're the first one that's ever done it would be pretty naive as well. So keep all that into perspective, but those were a couple of my criteria. I want to make something that I liked making, that would sell, that also wasn't like all the stuff that I made for other people. So it was a little difficult, and it took some time to find some things that I really liked that did sell. And like I said, that's something I still think about, because there are times that there's things that I would like to make that I'm like, well, I would really like to make that, but I've made them before and they didn't sell very well. So it's kind of like, well, kind of like cream and sugar sets. I think they're really cool looking, and I mean they're just really, and they'd be kind of fun to make. But by the time you count a creamer with a handle and a sugar bowl with possibly 2 handles and a lid, I mean, you're talking, 3 handles, 2 and 3 thrown pieces. The amount of time it's going to take to make that versus maybe if it does sell and how much I have to sell it for to make it worthwhile. Sometimes it's just not worth it, time-wise. Now, if I just run out of ideas and I got all the time in the world and I don't have to worry about any of that, then I just might make some cream and sugar sets. But for the time being, I still have a cream and sugar set over there that I made a couple years ago that never sold. So, and it's not that it looks bad, in my opinion. It's a good looking cream and sugar set. It's just that it didn't really sell for what I needed to sell it for, in my opinion, to make it worthwhile. So that was a long answer to a short question. All right, so there's number 2, or number 3, sorry. Number 2 over there. Third one's behind you, behind the camera. Not behind you. If you turn around, you won't see it. All right, let me see. Let me look at the comments and drink a little bit of water, and then we'll do something else here real quick. Not real quick, but. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce your name there. Is it Mikkel? But yeah, actually, I don't mind doing that. As far as throwing wet sections, maybe that's something we could do right now. But yeah, I might make another. I've thought about that recently, is doing another video on adding wet sections together. Scary, sorry, I had a phone call coming in there. It can be a little scary adding those together, so. Can't turn on airplane mode because I got to be connected to the internet for you guys to be watching me. Otherwise, I would do that. The tyranny of blue glaze pots. That is hilarious, Michael. Yeah, blue sells. definitely. And I mean, I like blue, so I don't have any problem against that. You know, I definitely like to try glazes and layering glazes to get different looks that'll be different than other people's for sure. Danielle, I don't know why that message was retracted, but there's one that got retracted somehow. Maybe you did it. Yeah, the reason I'm splitting the rim on these is, yeah, because the moisture difference between the bottom and the top. If I just tried to do them flat to flat, plus the rim of these, the bottoms is a lot thinner than what I do. So that's the reason I have to do that. Um, I've been throwing for 27 years almost. My first job in pottery was when I was 16, and in May I'll be 41. So 25 years that I've actually been getting paid for it. But as far as making my own pottery, I've only been doing that for the last, I think, 6 years. But as far as making money, making pottery, it's been pretty much my livelihood for the last 25 years. Okay, like nickel with an M. Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely, Christina, I definitely have to think about time when I'm going to price things and how much time goes into certain things. If you looked at my Etsy sale that I just did, I had mugs that had the white slip decoration on them, and those I charged a little bit more for because of that time that it takes to add the slip. There's probably more of that I need to do, but at times it's hard for me to. I'd rather make pots all day long every day than have to price pots. I can't. I hate pricing things. It's I'm always in a dilemma there too because I'm like, all right, I feel like I know what it's worth and I know what time and energy went into it and all my experience, but uh, but I still have to sell it because I need to pay bills with the money that I sell it for if I'm doing this for a living. And so it's like, you know, uh, I don't even know what super chats are. That's funny. We're getting to the limits of my technology experience and understanding. Actually, I think I have heard of that before. And that's a great idea, though. I always that's another thing as far as pricing pots. Or I have considered doing a Patreon as well. I don't know. I just it's weird because it's like, you know, um, I want to sell the work that I make to earn my income, and it feels a little weird to me, or at least it may, and I may be able to get over that by having a Patreon that people would just give to on a monthly basis, just to help support my production of content on YouTube. And I know plenty of other content creators do that. I don't know. I haven't done it yet, and I'm also I don't know. I just would. I've struggled to think about what kind of rewards people would get for being a patron on there. So, yeah, I don't know that. But the super chats, that's not a bad idea. Um, let's uh, let's make a two-section pot where I put two wet sections together, um, and then we'll see what time it is after that. Yeah, I've never done any chattering. But yeah, that's an interesting idea. I don't know. I have never tested it, tried it, so yeah, I do have a gallery at my shop that people can stop in. It's open by appointment, so if people are ever in town, they can definitely let me know. Um, all right, let me let me get a couple clay balls here, and then we'll make a two-section pot, two or three section, and we'll talk through that as we make that. Here, we'll turn you guys around so you're not, it's not mysterious sounds in the background. You can see I'm cutting clay. Yeah, here in North Carolina, we got springtime starting and pollen falling, so we got all kinds of fun here. I didn't know, wasn't even thinking about having an issue of talking like I do in my videos, and I feel my voice just like cracking and all that. So, all right, we're gonna this is I'm gonna do 3 sections mainly because this is what I like. The first my first attempts at sectionals was this weight. So we're gonna go with I've got 2 3-pound clay balls here, so that'll make a 6-pound one when I center that in 2 pieces, and then I've got a 4 and a 2. I just cut these by length, so those are 3 inches each. So that one's 4 and that one's 2. So you can see they're the same length there. But so that'll make a 12-pound pot total. Somebody just went by and honked and said, "Hey." All right, turn you guys back around over here to the wheel. It can be beneficial if you have 2 wheels to do this, but I'll just do it with 1 because most people probably only have 1 wheel. So I'm going to start out by throwing the 6-pound bottom. I'm going to center this 6 pounds with 2 3-pound clay balls. And if you've not seen me do this before, I center a lot of times if I'm going to throw larger amounts of clay. I've centered all the way up to 20 or 25 pounds before, but I do it in sections. It just makes it a little easier on my body. And I think it's easier overall to center that much clay by doing it in sections. So I'll center one. 6 pounds is not that hard to center 1 clay ball, but I don't know, I think it's just a lot easier on my body and my wrists and my joints. So I figure that'll help me keep making pottery a lot longer than if I wear them out trying to force larger amounts of clay into the center of the wheel. As you can see, I already had that bottom center when I threw that top on. See how quickly I was able to center that top portion? To me, that's a whole lot easier than trying to center 6 pounds in 1 clay ball, especially if you have a little bit stiffer clay. I set some clay out last night to stiffen up so that I could make a taller piece in sections. It helps to have a little bit stiffer clay to do that. Now my really big pots, I actually like really soft clay to do those because I torch those anyways. So working with really soft clay on those doesn't affect it. And so, you know, centering 15 or 20 pounds of clay, even I do that in sections as well, probably like 5-pound sections at a time. But still, having the softer clay will help with that as well. So I am going to pull this, but I'm going to leave it a little bit on the thicker side because I'm going to add that 4-pound section on top of this, and then I'll add the 2-pound section on top of the 4-pound, or on top of the 4 and this 6 once I throw that. So it's not going to be super thick, but I'm definitely going to leave it a little thicker than I would if I was just making a 6-pound pot. Maybe we'll compare it to one of those jars that's down there on the bottom of my rack. because those I made yesterday, and those were out of 6 pounds. One of the biggest keys to making these section pots where you throw them and you add wet sections together is getting the thickness same here as the next piece you add to it, because if the thickness is not the same, that's where you'll notice those seams as they dry and are fired. Those seams will start to show up later. So getting those sections the same thickness is important, and also not adding too much weight in your next section compared to the one that you just did. So like this one being 6 pounds, I wouldn't want to add another 6 pounds on top of this without, drying this bottom piece out. I could add 6 pounds if I dried this bottom piece out, but with just adding 6 pounds to 6 pounds that's already here and that's wet, it would definitely have a good chance of causing problems. Alright, so I'm gonna flatten this top part out. So yeah, somebody mentioned earlier about the fact that for my wet piece, the pieces that I do wet sections together, I just do a flat rim. So I don't make this concave and convex and put those together. I just do a flat rim here, and then the next piece will also be flat and just match up the width of that. And I'm not going to make the foot on the bottom of this yet. I'm going to wait till I add the next section or even the last one before I do that as well. But now I'm going to take my ruler and measure that. Of course, this starts at 18 and goes to 26, so it's 8 inches wide. This is where also having the mark on my wheel head helps, if you heard me mention that in my last video. So I've got a mark on my wheel head next to this bat pin. So I'm just going to put a little bit of clay next to this bat pin because I want to take this bottom section off, and then I'm going to put it back on after I throw the next section and add the next section to it. And so we'll set this over here on the rack. It's a little far away. Alright, so now we're going to take the 4-pound clay ball and make the next section. And I'm basically throwing this upside down, a lot like what I did with those vases at the beginning, except we're making it with just flat on the top. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. And of course, just like any other pottery, the more you work at it, the better you'll be at making those shapes, and also figuring out what shape you want to make before you even make the next section, or before you even make the whole pot. You'll be like, all right, I think I want to, have a shape in mind, and then kind of work towards that as you're making the sections. It gets a little different making these in sections because sometimes your perception of what you want to make and how you need to make it is different, because those sections, the way they come together sometimes can throw you off a little bit. Alright, so before I pull this up very much, I'm going to measure this and see how wide we are. Yeah, so we're at 7.5 right now, so in pulling this, I don't want to pull it much wider because I don't want to have to bring it back in. So I'm going to try to pull this more straight up, if not in just a little bit, and then I can always make it wider. It's a lot easier to make it wider than it is to bring it in. You all know that if you have messed with clay much at all. Like I said, I'm going to try to get the top thickness of this just by feel and look the same thickness as the other one. I guess you could measure it, but Yeah, I had somebody request on Instagram that I make one of those two-piece moon jars on stream. And I did think about it, but I knew I'd have to use the torch if I was going to do it on stream, and that makes a whole lot of noise, and I wouldn't really be able to talk very much to you guys if I was drying a piece. So I thought, no. I even thought about the other day when I thought about doing a live stream, I even thought about making like a 50 or 60 pound pot on stream with coils. Like I said, there's a that'd probably be a 3-hour stream, and there'd be a lot of time in between there where it gets really noisy with the torch going. So I may just have to do a time lapse of a large piece like that for you guys to see it. Alright, so I've got the width of this set up, 8 inches where it needs to be. And now I'm going to find that same spot on my wheel. And so I'm going to take this off, and it doesn't really matter where this goes back on, but I want to put this bat that has the bottom 6-pound section, I want to put it back on the wheel that way so that it's running evenly still. So what I'm going to do is take this section that's 8 inches wide, and this is 8 inches wide, flip this over on top of it like this. So like I said, this is the size that I started out doing, and you can see if you measure that correctly, it fits pretty evenly, or it should fit evenly all the way around. It's not always going to be perfect. And I'm not too worried about the shape being different right there right now because these pieces are wet. I can pull through that and shape through that as I'm making it. What started me on this path was I watched a video at the first shop I ever worked at. There was an older lady, Nell Cole Graves, who was a descendant of the Cole family that has made pottery in this area for a long time. And her brother, who I never met while he was alive, but there was a video of him making a giant pot, and he made the bottom section, and then he took a wet thrown section and he added it on top and threw the two together. And I was like, man, that's interesting, and I've always thought, well, if you could get a taller, one of the biggest challenges to make something bigger is to make a good cylinder to begin with, a tall cylinder, and pulling that much clay. So I thought, well, if there's a way to get that clay pulled in a tall cylinder without having to throw all that clay at one time, then that would be the way to make bigger pots, or at least one way. And so I just started trying different weights, and I found out things that worked and things that didn't work, and definitely figured out that adding too much clay on top of the section you did first was not a good idea, because who knows how many I lost in the process of doing this, but it was a lot. As with anything that you're learning, the learning curve on anything. You probably saw there as I'm pulling up through this, you'll see that seam kind of show up there for a second, but as my rib goes over it, and as I work on that seam from the inside, just kind of pushing out against my rib, it kind of like goes away again. And I think that all just kind of, you're working through that seam every time I'm doing a pull or a shape through that area. And it just joins those two pieces together, like I said, because they're two pieces of wet clay. So, if you take two pieces of clay that just come off your hand and then just stick it, I mean, that's really wet, but if you just took two pieces of wet clay and just stuck them together, even if I take them off of a clay ball, these haven't even been thrown yet. But if I just take these two pieces of clay and then I just stick them together like that, they're not coming apart where I just stuck them together. Well, they just did, but that was pretty hard. So that's the concept here that I was working with is, like, okay, well, I don't have to, dry them out and then score them and slip them if I can figure out a way of stacking them wet where they don't collapse. and you just have to, one of the things I had to get over was the strong desire to make things as thin as possible. Now I still don't try to make things, you know, super thick and heavy, but you know, I had to get over the fact that I had to leave a little bit of weight in the bottom of this in order to support the weight of the piece that you put in on top of it. And I kind of just had to understand also that if you're going to make bigger pots, they're going to be thicker anyways, because just natural, you know, just a 100-pound pot can't have, you know, paper thin walls like a cup can. It's just not going to support itself. So I just kind of, the first shop that I worked at, it was, you know, we threw everything as thin as could be, and you know, that was good practice for some things, but you know, there are times that you need to make things thicker, depending on what they're being used for, or maybe just depending on the size. All right, so there we go. That's somewhat of a shape there that I like. And that's, of course, a whole lot wider on top than the last section was. But we're going, well, I guess it's only about 7/8 of an inch wider. So 8 7/8 is what we got to make the next section to. So like I said, again, I'm going to find that spot on my wheel and mark that. And now I can't put it back on that rack over there because it's too short. But I'll put it over here on my table to my right. This is the tricky part, which is having a separate wheel is good when so you don't have to move that piece over and over again. So that's one advantage. If you have two wheels, you can do that and not have to move that. All right, now I got my 2-pound section. Based on my shape there, I don't know if 2 pounds is going to do everything I want to on the top of that, but it'll just have a small top on it. Alright, so we're going to make the bottom of what I'm doing right here pretty small, because that's going to end up being the top, and I want to flip it over. So this piece is going to kind of have a shape where it starts and then comes up kind of like a bowl, but with a little bit of a base to it, kind of where it comes up and then flares out. Kind of helping myself with the shape already before I add it to the top. So it's already curving in like that. Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to have to go considerably wider. No, almost there. All right, there we go. I'm probably missing a lot of questions and comments. Apologize about that, but I'm trying to talk through this as I go. All right. Like I said, the tricky part about having to move that is you can, you know, especially if it's on a bat like this, it can flex and bend and move. But just try to be as careful as possible if you have to move it. Of course, you don't have to start out this big. If you just want to do like a, you know, a 3-pound bottom with a 1-pound top, throw them in 2 sections being wet. You know, it'll be the practice of throwing those two together that still will help you. Yeah, I keep my hands clean while I'm throwing. I learned a long time ago about throwing clean as well. Yeah, this is not, probably not, it'll be fine. I'd like a little more top on it, but that's a good fit. We'll cut that off and then we'll see how much clay we got to work with there. Just like on those other vases, I'm gonna, you know, wet this top and get it smoothed out before I ever work on the seam here. Yeah, I did a really good job on getting the thicknesses of those two the same. Can feel it on the inside. Alright, what I'm going to try to do is bring this top in and make, I got a form inside that I'm thinking about that I made a couple years ago when the first piece I ever did with one of the blue glazes I have now. One of the first times it came out successfully, I kept that piece because it was so nice, and I'm glad I did because it's never turned out quite exactly the same. It's still a very nice glaze, but it's never turned out quite exactly the same as it did that one on one of those very first pieces that was fired in my buddy Joseph's wood kiln. Seth, of course you would. You want me to make you a coffee cup this big? That's a lot of coffee. It's always fun when you got family and friends come in the stream to troll you a little bit. Alright, before I close this up much more, I want to, here, I'm going to back you guys up so you can see the whole shape. Here, we'll put you guys over here. I know you won't be able to see what I'm doing with my hands working as well, but you can at least see the whole shape from there. Anyway, what I was saying is I have a piece inside that's very similar to this shape. It was really kind of one of the first times I had done that blue, and it was one of the first times that I really had good experience with what ended up now being the beginnings of my idea for the peacock platters and the designs. I really just started out with doing slip work in dot patterns, and then over time that evolved into doing it with glaze and just adding different elements together that ended up being my, as you guys, if you've seen any of my work, you know I love dots, so. Just fun to play around with different arrangements of those dots and the There we go. Good thing is I can actually look over at the camera and I can see the shape from a distance. I should do this more often. Normally I got to get up and step over there where the camera is and bend down and look at the shape. Now I can just look in the camera and my phone that's facing towards me and see the shape. All right, now I can take the bottom and make a little foot there on the bottom. So there we go. There's a 12-pound vase made in 3 sections, and like I said, that's the way I started making large pieces in sections was with that clay arrangement. That and my bigger one that I used to make was 10, 6, and 4, and I still do that combination today as well, which makes a 20-pound pot. But yeah, it's pretty neat. All right, let's check on comments here. Been an hour and 18 minutes now. All right, let me scroll back up. There we go. Hey, Stephanie, that's funny about the pug. I know this is old. Largest pot I've ever thrown in one piece. Mary, if you're still here. Trying to remember. I've probably thrown 15 or 20 pounds in one piece and made a whole pot out of that. Well, I made that 25-pound bowl. I wasn't very happy with it, but well, good. I'm glad I helped, Christina. Yeah, I'm not the biggest person in the world either, so finding ways to make bigger pots that was easier on my body was important to me. Hey, Scott, I'm glad you just received the pots. You got your delivery notice. Yeah, use less weight every section as I go up. If you watch the rest of that, Christina, you know now. I buy my clay already made either from High Water or this clay came from Starworks Ceramics here in Star, North Carolina. Scott, I haven't really recorded that much while I'm glazing. Not because I'm trying to keep it a secret necessarily, as much as it's just it's more difficult to record while I'm glazing. It takes a whole lot more attention to detail while I'm glazing. And I probably spend as much, if not more time glazing than I do throwing, because I have several steps that I do when I glaze. And that's another thing. It's probably that a lot of times I'll take a piece, I'll do some slip work on it. I'll do some, and then it's got to dry and be bisque fired. And then I'm going to probably do a couple different layers of glaze, which you have to do one and then let that dry and then do the second layer. And then a lot of times I'll spray glaze after that. So I guess having to record that in multiple steps makes it a lot harder for me to keep up with, and takes a lot longer to produce that kind of a video. And so I haven't done that many because of that. Savage, I didn't, adding the wet pieces together, I found it best just to do flat sections, because they're 2 wet pieces and then you can just stack the 2 together and they form a good bond without having to do the concave and convex. Yeah, I could make one more top piece, Stephanie. Excuse me. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Pollen getting to me. All right, let me get back up to where I was. Now, I don't ever use a mirror. I've tried before and I didn't really like it. Thank you for all the comments on that. Yeah, Mikkel, you're welcome. Christina, you're funny. And Steven, thank you for being here. And Reggie, you're very welcome. Vancouver. All right, Aaron. I've actually been to Vancouver and I really enjoyed it. That was a beautiful place. Yeah, oh shoot, I didn't add my slip recipes yet. I'm sorry. I had a few people ask and I said I would add them, but I didn't do that yet. Thank you for the reminder, Reggie. I will do that. Yeah, I probably won't squish or alter that one much at all. Yeah, I like the shape of that one. Hey, Gene. Hey, better late than never, right? Seth, you're funny. All right, we'll move that one. I tell you what, we'll take a little break. I'm gonna take you guys out and show you. I fired my gas kiln last night with a bisque in it, and I've tried that in the past and messed up some pieces, so I don't normally do that. But I built a little bit of a bag wall around my burner ports to help with that, and we'll go check on it. I think I checked on it earlier, and everything seemed fine, but we'll go give it a more proper check now with you guys here, and we'll see how things did. Now you guys can feel like you're watching Simon Leach, just carrying the camera around. All right, so let's see here. I haven't really done any carving, Shelby. Oops. Just a little bit. Yeah, so you can watch it later. All this will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. All right, here, let's get you guys backed up. So like I said, I fired a bisque in here, and you can see some of y'all asked about the glaze or the glass melting, and something about that blue glass melts. Of course, the top of the kiln was hotter than the bottom, but something about that dark blue glass, it did melt more than the other glasses I have in the bisque. So I'm interested to see how that's gonna look when I bring it out of the actual, when I glaze it. Oops, sorry. So you can see where the glass beads were in there and it melted and ran. It's got the drips. So, but the thing I love about the glass beads is it's gonna leave that spherical indentation there. So, but I got everything. You can see the bag walls that I built around my burner ports in all four corners to help protect the pots from the flame. So that's what I did. You can see here in the bottom, I'll show you another piece with glass beads. Of course, like I said, it's not nearly as hot in the bottom, but those beads didn't melt and run. They did start to melt because you can see where they maybe a little bit. Well, these don't even look like they melted very much, but those will melt and run. I only fired it to about probably 15 to 1600 degrees in the bottom, but I knew the top was going to be hotter. So the bottom ones are probably bisqued a little lower than I would like them to, but being that they're going to be fired in my wood kiln, I wasn't too worried about it because that's fired so much slower anyways. And so, but I wanted to get some of these bigger pieces fired. And so, yeah, everything looks good. Very interesting with that glaze or that glass already dripping. But we'll see what that looks like with the glaze over it, and if that affects the way it looks too much, then I don't know. It'll just be what it'll be. But got some pictures in here. That's a really nice jar right there. I'm excited to see that one finished. So this was a 9-pound jar. And it's got the handles and the slip decoration on it there. I'll probably do my soft blue over top of that, and then it'll make a really cool pattern where all those slip dots are. This other jar back here, this was a, I believe this was a 12-pound jar back here. If you guys saw in my post recently, I did turtle mugs, but I also got a couple turtle pitchers, sea turtle pitchers. That's going to be neat. So now you can see in the picture, you probably saw the leftover of the pencil lines where I drew on the greenware, and then, but now that those are all burnt off, it looks pretty cool because all you see is the turtle design. Here's a mug with a sea turtle on it and a wave on that side. Excited to see those come out of the... Oh, and I love these pictures that I put that same design in the neck like I just did that vase inside earlier. I think that makes those look really cool. Kind of gives that band in the neck, kind of break up the proportion from the top to the bottom. But this jar, as I was saying, this is a this was a 12-pound base, and then the lid. That's a pretty good sized jar there. Nice shape on that one. I didn't do any slip on this one. I don't know. I might even put this one right up front and just let you get some really nice natural wood ash and salt drips and runs on it. So, and we got some small jars here. That was a 3-pound jar. I got the #1 pot for wood firing #2. Backwards for you guys because of the camera. But that's that Rebecca picture I made in a few earlier this year in a video. So anyway, I'll get to unloading this later. I just figured I'd show it to you guys. That one's gonna be pretty cool there. I even did a little bit on the handle. Yeah, something like that I'll definitely have to charge more for because of all the time it took me to do all that slip decoration. But I love that one. That one's gonna be a really cool piece. I'll probably leave something like that raw on the outside too. I don't think I'll glaze over that at all. Just let it get salt glaze and ash and natural fly ash on it. So, all right, let's see comments. I haven't been looking at those. Yeah, Christina, it was last year, September, that I quit working for other potters and just went full-time for myself. Hey, Hey, Gene, you ought to be able to bisque fire in yours. Because I do mainly do reduction in mine, but yeah, they're all different. Only I can get away with what? Bisque firing in my gas kiln. Yeah, you're welcome, Debbie. I'm glad you enjoy. Yeah, I figured the sea turtles are going to be popular. I only had two in my first wood firing, and they both sold before I even had my kiln opening. I had friends that just saw the picture of it and sent me messages like, "I want this one," and so they were sold like as I was unloading the kiln. It's crazy. Um, Jackie, I did not study art other than in high school. I don't have a college degree, and yeah, I definitely, Reggie, I will fire some pieces on the side in the wood kiln. I haven't made any yet to specifically fire side fired, but I will. Deborah, I have done a little bit of work for some potters in Georgia. Um, I did barter for a lot of my bricks for my wood kiln, and actually for this gas kiln was a potter in Georgia owned that, and that was the Greenbrier, Stephen Edza in Georgia. How many hours a day do I spend in the studio? That just depends on the day, but I it it's hard to tell. It just really depends on what I have to do. I could spend as little as 3 or 4 hours up to 10 or 12 hours in my studio, and honestly, when I'm working, it doesn't bother me to spend a whole lot of time out there. Now, my wife, she'll probably be like, "No, you come inside and help with the kids." So that's the thing that I try to do is balance that time so that I can help her out as well. Here's some other things I got ready for the wood kiln. I've got some more things that I need to bisque, and now that I've had a successful bisque in my gas kiln, I think I figured out how to do that. I'll probably do more of those uh, in the gas kiln instead of in my electric kiln, especially some of these bigger pieces. I've got some more. These were the first two-part vases that I made. There's another one with that textured neck. There's another jar back there with a glass bead in it and a jug. And I got my two giant pots in here as well. They're drying, and we'll be able to bisque fire those in the in the gas kiln as well, which will help because having to bisque fire them in an electric kiln, I can only do one at a time, and being able to do both of those in the gas kiln at one time will help a whole lot. I ended up doing some glass beads in this first one I made here as well. So this is going to be a black slip, and the glaze that I plan to put over this will help that run, and the glass beads will run as well. So I got a pattern of that, and then on the other one I've got red slip and some handles. Anyway, any more questions before we go? I mean, I'll probably stay out here and work, but I don't know that. Oh, the beads are embedded in probably about halfway, Stephanie, so they don't fall out. In my Dan, in my wood kiln, I don't glaze everything. I glaze everything on the inside, but some pieces I leave natural and just get the salt glaze and the wood ash. Let me go grab a piece that I did do with. I haven't done any face jugs or mugs yet, Seth, but I need to. Yeah, I got lots of things to do. Let me grab. Oh, I know I've got one piece over here with glass beads that were embedded in it. So here's one. This is one I made a couple years ago, and it has glass beads that were embedded in it, and then you can see where they melted and ran, and then it left those little indentions. And then the cool thing is on the inside, you probably can't see. Yeah, there you go. You can see little protrusions on the inside from that as well. But I hope to get a little bit more of an effect than that, but that's still pretty neat. The closer together you put those, the more effect you'll get, but also you'll get a lot of runs. You can see how much this one dripped and ran just from those glass beads being in there, because that stuff does melt and run, and then it combined with the glaze that I put over it. And I had to grind the bottom of this one a decent amount because of that. So you got to be careful working with the glass, because it will melt and run, and it could ruin a pot or ruin a shelf. All right, Christina, thanks for being here. Yeah, I do use copper red, Dan. You probably saw stuff from my last. Yeah, Mark Hewitt does a lot of glass in his as well. Yeah, I do use copper red. You guys probably remember this piece from the kiln unloading video. This one did not go up on Etsy because I was like, no, I think I'm probably going to keep that one. I don't do that very often, but that was just a stunning piece when I pulled it out, and I thought, you know what, it may be small, but I'm going to keep that one for now. And then once I duplicate it, then we'll see. But for now, that one was a keeper. And this is a copper red down here on the bottom, and then I layered it with another glaze up here on top, which gave all that blue and black and kind of dark red effect there, and then the drips. So, and then that's that same combination of copper red and that other glaze with my ash glaze on the bottom. And these are both fired in my gas kiln, not in my wood kiln. You can really put anything in that, Andy. That's just for decoration, pretty much. All right, well, it's been, yeah, hour and 40 minutes now, so I think we'll probably end it there. I've got plenty more work to do, but for today, for the live stream, that's plenty of time. No, Christina, I should have, my first firing, I did have most of the pieces come out semi-matte, and I think what I did that I'm going to do differently is that when we put the salt in at the end of the firing, I didn't fire it long enough after we put the salt in to get the excess salt burned out, and so I think it left some of the salt embedded in the glazes, and so it made them more matte finish. So some of the glazes I have definitely should be shiny, and this next time I fire, I think and I expect they will be more so than this last time. So that's just something I'll have to try and see if that's what it was, but I'm pretty sure from talking to different people and from my experience and just looking at the pieces, and I refired a couple pieces, and they came out shiny. And so I didn't fire them any hotter than they were in the wood kiln. I just refired them in my gas kiln, and by burning out that excess salt, they got really shiny. I'll show you one of them. One of the platter bowls that I refired came out super shiny, and I have never had a piece wood fired to look quite like that. So this one ends up on my wall and is staying there because I've had plenty of people want to buy this one, but it is not for sale because it is so unique. So this is one of the ones that hangs up there behind my wheel, and yeah, just an amazing piece. And once all the excess salt burned out of that, it turned shiny, and I was like, okay, so that I think proved to me that that it was just that we didn't fire long enough after we salted to burn out enough of the excess salt to give everything, and also to reheat everything back up so that it did burn all that out and make everything shiny again. So we'll find out when I do this next one. Was originally gonna do my firing in just a couple weeks, and then have my kiln opening in April 18th and 19th, but that may have to be changed. So stay tuned about that. Either way, when I do the wood firing, I will save some pieces out of that wood firing to do another Etsy sale of those. So if you're interested in some of those and you don't live local, don't worry. I will be saving some pieces out for Etsy. And I will try to make more videos, or at least a little bit, maybe some different aspects of the wood firing this next time. The first firing, it was just so intense all the way leading up to it, and it was just hard for me to think about making a video about that whole process, even though I wanted to. So I'm going to try to a little bit this time. And with things being crazy in the world right now, I might have more time to do that, because I am probably going to spend a lot more time at home. So anyway, I'll probably do another live stream very soon. Who knows? Maybe even in the next couple days. But I'll announce it on my social media between now and then. So hey, if you guys have been here watching and you enjoy the videos, if you haven't subscribed, do that. As I say in all my videos, if you like what you see, give them a thumbs up, share them with people, because that definitely helps out me in the process of making videos and the income that I receive from them, and also my videos being recommended in other videos by having that show up. So yeah, you're welcome, Jackie. I'm glad to be able to help. And like I said, I know the world's crazy right now, and I thought this would give us some time to talk and get our minds off of all the craziness that's going on. The next chat day, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll, like I said, just stay tuned, and I'll plan another one. Today is Wednesday. I might even do another one the end of this week, Friday. I need to have another video up probably. My schedule was what I'm trying to keep to is Tuesday and Saturday to have videos up, and so maybe we'll do another one Friday if I have my video recorded for Saturday. So anyway, thank you guys as always. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate you. You guys stay safe and be smart. I know it's no fun to be isolated like we're having to be, but the best thing we can do is just travel as least as possible so that we can keep everybody healthy and not catch anything ourselves or spread anything to anybody else. And, I'll just try to keep making content so you guys can have a little something to do outside of all that mess. So anyway, thank you guys as always. Appreciate you. And we'll see you in the next video. All right.